Hi everybody, it's time to bake. I'm a little bit early, so we're gonna have a slow start while we're waiting for everyone to get on board. So I've got my oven on at 180 degrees, warming up, and I've got my baking tray. I still couldn't find any baking paper, so I'm just gonna rub it with some butter while we're waiting for everybody to come online. So I've got a bit of kitchen tissue with some butter on, and literally just gonna wipe it all over the tray. Doesn't need a lot, just lightly. And then today, because the scones do tend to stick, I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on it as well. A little bit more butter on the tray. Hope everyone's doing okay. Thanks for watching. It's exciting. We're going to make scones, everyone. We're all going to make scones or scones. So that is my tray all rubbed down with butter. I'm going to sprinkle it with a little bit of plain flour. Now we may have some people using plain flour and some people using self-raising, but as we go along I will let you know how they differ. So sprinkling a little bit of flour on my baking tray, just so that it not too difficult like that. Hi Jim! Ooh, an easel. You think the phone will go on there? Will it? Well, that could work. I've got it set up like this for now, so it should be fine. But thank you though. Come show me. Come and join us, Jim. I have a lovely assistant today as well. I'm going to make him help me. This is Jim. He's a fireman and a key worker, so he has to go to work, but he's not on shift today. Right, now then, I think everybody is tuning in. I'm going to go a little bit slower today because yesterday I went a little bit quick for some people. So we're going to slow it down so that people know what they're doing step by step. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to measure out our flour and our baking powder. So you will need 225 grams of whatever flour you're using. I don't actually have any self-raising either today, so I'm using plain flour and we're going to use some teaspoons of baking powder. But if you've got self-raising flour, just 225 grams of your self-raising flour, and you're going to sieve it into your bowl. So 225 grams go in there. We sieve everything because it stops little bits of chunks of flour from getting in there, and it will make your scones nice and light and fluffy. So that's 225 grams just over. There we go. Then if you're using plain flour, if you're using self-raising flour, that's it. That's all you need, 225 grams of self-raising flour. If you're using plain flour, you will need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. It should be, whenever you're using plain flour instead of self-raising, it should be 2 teaspoons to 150 grams, but that seems like kind of a lot, so we're just gonna go for 2 teaspoons, and not too heaped either, just kind of like that. 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons into your plain flour, and mix it up as you're sieving. Right, there it is. I'm going to sieve it all up. I was thinking I should have like one of them cameras that's like on my head so that you can see what I'm doing, but this is more fun. You can see my face. I also had some comments yesterday that I possibly should have dressed up. I apologise for everyone that watched yesterday, as I was mostly in my pyjamas because I don't go to work now because of this coronavirus. So look, I got dressed. I'm wearing jeans and everything. You're very lucky. So I'm going to sieve all the flour in. I even put on a bit of makeup. Like, this is not going to be a everyday thing. I'm mostly going to be in my house clothes or pyjamas most of the time. But you're lucky today. I actually ventured out the house to get supplies, so I've got clothes on. Right, I'm going to sieve in our flour and our baking powder. Then we're going to give it a little bit of a mix. If you've used baking powder as well into your flour, just give it a little bit of a stir around with a whisk, just to make sure that your baking powder's all mixed in there. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in our butter. Now then, your butter should be chilled, so it should be coming out of the fridge. I have some butter here, fresh from Aldi. Aldi are doing a good old job of keeping people 2 metres away from each other. They had a very nice security guard who decided to sing to us to tell us to stay 2 metres away from each other. It's a very cheery day at Aldi. Right, so we've got 225 grams of our flour. If you're using plain flour, you've also put in 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Now we're going to add our butter. So, what you want to do is you want to cut your butter into chunks as you're adding it. You only need 55 grams of butter. So what I tend to do is chop it into little chunks while it's in the paper, and I'll show you this in just a sec. So just like that. So I cut across and then I cut down so that they're already into like little chunks. Do a little cut across like that. That way, as you're putting them into the bowl, they kind of go in little cubes anyway. It saves you having to measure it and then cut it and then remeasure it. So we're looking for 55 grams of your butter. So we're going to drop in the little chunks one at a time. Depending on the size of your chunks, you'll probably only need about 4 or 5. There's not very much butter going in. Okay, I think that's 30 grams, so we'll do a little bit more. Do 1 cut down and then a few little chops across once again. Chop it down the bottom like that, and then I'm literally just dropping each little chunk in. 40 grams, 51, oh, 52, oh god, 56, ta-da, that'll do. 55, actually says 55. So, this is where the kids can help. If you're baking with kids, make sure your hands are washed, kids, and what you're going to do is rub the flour and the butter together. Whenever you see a recipe that says rub in the butter, it's a little bit confusing, but basically you want to do this kind of movement with your hands, and you're just going to literally do that into your flour and your butter. You're going to rub the butter and the flour together. It's going to get all on your hands, you're going to be really messy, but that is exactly what you want. You want to break up your little chunks of cold butter and mush it into your flour. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, why are you baking? Because that's the whole fun. But you can use a fork, and it stops the butter from melting, which is always a good thing. So we're rubbing away, and you're going to keep on rubbing until it resembles breadcrumbs. I'm going to do this a bit quicker. If you're using a fork, you literally just mash it in. It does the same thing. So we're going to rub it in. Kids, get your hands in there, squish all the butter, squish it up with your hands, with your fists, and rub it all into the flour, swish it around, rub it in some more. How are we getting on? I'm actually going to try and read some comments today. I didn't do very well with that yesterday. I was a little bit nervous, I'm not going to lie. So we're rubbing in all the butter, mushing it all together, swirling it around. Right, this is good. Now, if you are doing sweet scones, I've kind of left it up to you guys what fillings you want to put in. I'm going to be doing cheese. So I've got a lovely block of extra mature cheddar, but woo, bit messy. If you are doing sweet scones, this would be where you would add your tablespoons of caster sugar. Now you can put in about 2 tablespoons of caster sugar if you want sweet scones. If you're doing cheese, no sugar required. Because they're kind of going to be savoury scones if you're doing cheese. Right, now we're getting a good kind of breadcrumb consistency. I'm going to try and show you this so you know what we're looking for. But breadcrumbs is the closest thing to it. If you squeeze the flour, it should kind of go into blocks and then break up again. So squeeze the lumps of flour. You should have no big chunks of butter. All the butter should be kind of in small chunks, all mixed through the flour. Right, now I'm going to try and show you this without getting flour everywhere. That's what mine looks like. It's still very floury, but there's no big chunks of butter. It's all kind of mixed in there. And then what we're going to do now is add a little bit of salt. I didn't put this on the recipe because it is optional. Some people don't like to bake with too much salt or cook with too much salt, so I haven't put it on there, but a little bit of salt gives it a bit of extra flavour. And I'm using an extra mature cheddar, which will have quite a lot of salty taste in it anyway. But mix that in. Now we're going to add our milk. Now I always measure wet ingredients because I find it's just more accurate than trying to use a measuring jug. So I'm going to get a little jug on my scales and I'm going to measure my milk with the weighing scales. Now if you don't have a milliliter option on your scales, grams is the same as milliliters on the scales. So, so good having it at home. It's not distracting at all. So, get my milk. I'm using semi-skimmed, but you can use any milk you like. If I was making this as a vegan recipe, you can use almond milk or whatever, but obviously you would need some sort of non-dairy butter. So, you will need 100 mils of milk. Do not put this straight into your flour because you won't need it all. Right, I'm measuring out, I'm using my grams, I'm just measuring out 100 grams of milk. Nearly like that. If you put it all into the mix, you're not going to need all of it, so it's literally going to be drowned. So there we go. I've got my 100 mils of milk. It's not a lot, but you honestly won't need a lot. Put my scales out of the way. Then what we're going to do, with our breadcrumby flour, to make sure there's no chunks in there, I'm going to make a little hole in the middle. Kids, this is still fun for you guys too. Measure out your milk, get mum to measure out your milk, and then put a little well in the middle of your flour. Just kind of make a little hole. And then we're going to add the milk just a little bit at the time, not all in one go. See, everyone's still talking about Jim. Jim, you're going to have to come back because they all just want to see Jim. Right, we're going to add a little bit at a time, and all we're going to do is bring it together until it's in a dough. Now I'm going to use a spatula for this bit because it does get pretty messy. So just a bit at a time. It will start to kind of all clump together. Is everyone keeping up all right? I'm not going too fast, am I? What's going on here? We're doing fruit. Oh, okay. Sugar, 2 tablespoons of sugar, Penny, if you're doing fruit. Right. Now then, I've just done a little bit so far into the flour mixture. I want it to still be really dry, so just a teeny tiny bit to start getting it into a bit of a clumping zone. Mine's still really quite dry, all floury, because now we're going to add whatever ingredients we want to add. We're going to leave our milk to one side for now, and I am going to be doing cheese, but it works the same with any dried fruit that you're doing. If you're doing fruit scones, you should have added 2 tablespoons of caster sugar to your dry mix. You can still do that now if it's quite dry, just mix it all up. Now I'm going to measure out 120 grams of whatever filling you're using. So I am using cheese. So I'm going to cut off a block of this lovely extra mature cheddar. Because if it's not extra mature, what's the point really? I'm going to do a block
Apparently you need
of
to tell
extra
your
mature.
people how much.
Pardon?
Apparently you need to...
I'm just, my lovely assistant has told me that people need an update on something.
You need to tell them how much fruit and sugar.
Yeah, I've just told them, thank you. I've just told them, thanks Rich, I've just told them. So for your extra ingredients, we're doing that now. People jumping the gun. You should have added 2 tablespoons of sugar if you're doing fruit scones, not if you're doing cheese, only fruit scones. 2 tablespoons of sugar. Then we're doing the ingredients, the extras now, so you don't have to worry about that. So 120 grams of your dried fruit or your cheese. It's a bit trickier because obviously we're now going to grate this cheese, so I'm just trying to cut it into as big a blocks as I can so that it's easier to grate. So we want 120 grams of cheese. Nearly there. If you're using fruit, depending on the type of fruit you're using, if they're in quite big chunks, I'd suggest kind of chopping them up. 120, great. Now I'm going to grate this onto a little piece of tissue. Grate your measured cheese. You can do it quite coarsely. I'm going to use the big hole grater there. If you're using fruit, I chop it up, not too small, because it's nice to have some big chunks, but if you're using like the little glassy cherry type things or anything like that, you can chop them up so they're a bit smaller. How much butter? Butter was 55 grams of butter. So to recap the ingredients, if anyone's just tuning in now, it was 225 grams of self-raising flour. If you're using plain flour, you need 2 teaspoons, level teaspoons of baking powder. Then if you're doing fruit scones, 2 tablespoons of caster sugar, 55 grams of butter. If you're doing cheese scones like me, then don't add the sugar. And now we're adding 120 grams of whatever filling you would like. I'm grating some cheese quite coarsely so that it's nice and chunky. It tends to kind of all melt down anyway. Right, grating away. Now we're not going to put all of this cheese in. We're going to save a little bit of it to put on top of the scones after, because it's really nice to have that kind of crunchy, cheesy top. Right. Hope everyone's doing well while I'm grating cheese. It's my second day of being off work, and I woke up feeling very guilty not to be working. I felt kind of like I was skiving, and other people seem to be out there working and doing normal things, and I am at home doing not very much and baking. But I know that it's for the best, and if we can stop the spread of this virus, then the NHS will not be as under pressure as they might have been if people are venturing to other people's houses and spreading it around. So my cheese is nearly grated. See, I'm saving lives right now. Everyone watching and baking with me is saving a life. My mum's watching. Hi, Mum. Oh yes, Mum says that if you use red Leicester cheese, that goes really well. That's a good tip. I like a good strong cheddar, but any kind of cheese you want to use will be nice. I tend to use a cheddar rather than anything like a mozzarella because it doesn't melt very well. It kind of goes a bit clumpy, so it's not going to work very well in your scones. Scones and scones, that's going to be a discussion for later. Is it a scone or is it a scone? Right, now then. So what we should have is our flour butter mixture with a little bit of milk in. Our ingredients, whatever they may be, whether it's chopped up fruit or grated cheese. I've got my grated cheese here. What was that, Mike, about NHS volunteers? Your thing's gone, I'm so sorry. Oh, add a pinch of mustard as well. Mum, you're doing well here, adding a bit of extra recipe things. Add a little pinch of mustard, gives it a bit of extra flavour. I've added a pinch of salt. Right, now, we are going to add, I'm going to measure this, we're going to add 100 grams of your filling. If you're using fruit, dog it all in there because you're not going to put any on the top. So I'm going to put 100 grams of my grated cheese into my dry mixture, saving 20 grams for on top. To be honest, you can kind of just judge it if you want to. Just save some so that you can put a little blob of cheese on top of each scone. But about 100 grams works quite well. I'm going to save a bit more actually, because I like a lot of cheese on top of my scone. Right, now then, so my cheese is in. I'm going to stir that in. Mix it in as best as you can. Same with your fruit. Mix your fruit all into the flouriness. Get it all distributed well. All covered in the floury, buttery mix. Right, and then we're going to go again with our milk. So it was 100 mils of milk, but you might not need all of it, so we're adding it a bit at a time. Now, if anybody is joining us late, so far we've done 225 grams of flour, 55 grams of butter, 2 teaspoons of baking powder if you're using plain flour, and we've just added 100 grams, 120 grams of whatever ingredients you would like. If you're using fruit, add 2 tablespoons of caster sugar as well. So back to our milk. Here is our milk. We're going to make a well in this again. Add a little bit, I'd say half of whatever milk you've got remaining. Mix that up. I was looking for some ideas for what to make tomorrow, and I thought since we've got kids helping and joining in, we could possibly do something like cookies, because it'll be easy for them to do and fun for them to kind of shape. And I'm going to do a little bit of a hybrid. I'm just going to add the rest of my milk, add a little bit more. I'm still going to save a little bit. Now if your mixture is quite dry, don't worry, mine's quite dry as well. Could be the cheese, could be extra fruit, but we just want it to come together in a dough. if your mixture is already kind of coming together into a bit of a dough, then stop adding your milk. If it's still very crumbly, then you might need to add a bit more milk. I'm getting my hand in there now. Mine is still a bit crumbly, so I'm going to go ahead, add the remaining milk. Right, that actually should do it. We don't want it to be too sloppy. Try not to handle the mixture too much as well, because the heat from your hands will start to melt that butter, and we want to keep it quite dry really. Now, my mixture is still a little bit crumbly. It's kind of, I'll show you now. See, it's kind of coming together into a bit of a dough, but it's still got some dry bits around the edges. All we're looking for is for that to like clump together in one dough. I'm going to add a teeny bit of milk. I'm just going to add a cap of milk, literally. So we've already added our 100 mils. I'm going to add a little dribble more, not even a cap. Put that in there, just because it's still a little bit crumbly and we want it to come together into a dough. That's much better. Right, I'll show you how this looks now. So that's what we've got now. We've got like, it's coming out of the bowl. Right, we've got one kind of lump of dough. So it should be quite relatively dry, not crumbly though. It should all come together into a nice dough. Right then, so we're going to make a space on our counter now, because we're going to turn our dough out. Save your cheese or whatever you're having on top of your scones. Make a little gap so that we can shape them. Right then, so I'm going to bring the camera down so that you can see what I'm doing a bit better. You won't see my face, but that's probably for the best. Right, now then, we're going to turn our lovely dough in one big clump. I'm going to put that out onto the surface. If there's any little crumbs still in your bowl, get them on there as well. Press them in. Now, the main thing with this is we don't want to handle it too much. So we don't want to knead it. It's not like a bread, we're not kneading it. All we really want to do is get it flat enough so that we can shape it into different scones. So I'm just going to press it down a little bit so that it's all in one chunk. A little bit on the crumbly side, but as long as it's in one chunk, you're all good. If your scone mix is a little bit dry, just keep adding a teeny tiny bit of milk each time so that it all comes together. Right, now, you use a rolling pin, but you can just flatten it down. And all I'm doing is just flatten it ever so slightly. You kind of want them, pretty thick really. I like a thick scone, yes I do. So I'm going to get mine into a bit of a square. If you have round cutters, you can use round cutters to get round scones, but when I used to make these with my mum, we always used to do them square. So I'm just going to do them square. They're going to taste just as good anyway. So, right. So I've got a nice square kind of dough there. I've just done it into like a bit of an oblong so that I can cut it. Into individual scones. So, get my trusty knife out. And I'm going to cut this into 6. Depending on how big you want your scone, you can cut them a bit smaller or a bit bigger. You could probably do it into 4 if you wanted. I'm guessing thickness wise, it's kind of about 1 inch, I'd say. Not much more than 1 inch, because you want them, they're going to rise a little bit, but you want them quite thick. Right, now I'm going to cut down the middle, longwise, and then cut them across into 6. You can be a bit more precise with this so that they look perfect, but as I say, they're going to taste really good regardless. So I'm going for taste over presentation. So that's what I've done. I've just made them into 6 individual little scones. I'm going to shape them a little bit so that those small corner ones are a little bit more of a appealing shape. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of our milk. If you've got eggs and you'd like to glaze them with an egg, carry on. I'm going to use a bit of milk. If you want to use an egg, pop an egg in a little dish, give it a bit of a scramble, and you can use that on top. but I've got some leftover milk, so that's what I'm going to use. And all you're going to do is brush the top of your scone with the milk. Now, if you're doing fruit scones, you could put a little sprinkle of sugar on top of your glaze, and that'll crisp up on top nicely. I'm going to put a big blob of cheese on top. But first, I'm going to put them on my baking tray, and I shall show you why. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just literally brushing the top of the scone with the milk. It'll do a similar thing to what egg would do. If you want to use egg, that is fine as well. It'll probably give you a bit more of a glossy top. But I don't have any eggs. Somebody's bought them all. Panic bought them all. Right, so literally I've just glazed, gone across the top, each one with a little bit of milk. Now I'm going to put my cheese on top. I've tilted my camera, so I'm going to use one hand. Oh no, I'm going to put them on my baking tray first. Bear with. Right. Move all of your scones to your baking tray. Like this. Because the cheese is going to kind of balance on top. So if you put them on before you move them to the baking tray, all the cheese falls off. So here we are. We've got my scones on my baking tray. A nice bit of space in between each one. And I'm going to just squeeze my cheese into a little lump and just kind of blob it on top like that, so that it kind of sticks together on top. It looks like a lot, but believe me, when this kind of melts down, it'll be really nice. So we're going to just put a little blob of cheese on each one. You can sprinkle it if you don't want too much cheese, but I like a good blob of cheese. Mum said, I have spare eggs, you can come and get some. Oh, thanks, Mum. I may actually need them if I can't get any tomorrow. To be honest, I didn't look today because I knew they weren't essential, but I will definitely come and rob your eggs. Thanks, Mama Bear. Right, and I'm going to take any little bits of cheese that fall onto your tray, try and pick up, because they will melt to your tray and burn and get very stinky in the oven. So I'm just picking up any bits of cheese that drop off, stick them on top, and there we have it. Scones ready to go in the oven. Have a look at those. 6 lovely scones, cheese on top, and we're putting them in the oven. So oven should have been on, 180 degrees, and they are going in. Here we go. I'm putting them on the middle shelf in the oven. Generally, I always go for the middle shelf because they'll just bake more evenly. Oh, right. Here we go. There they are. Nice and warm in there. Oven should be at 180 degrees. And we're going to put them in there for 10 minutes to start with. Where's my trusty timer? There it is. Right, so we're going to do 10 minutes. Ta-da! And we'll check on them in 10. Now I have to clean up the kitchen. So if you're sticking with me, it's time to clean up. Kids, if you've been making scones and they've managed to get in the oven, it's time to help Mum clean up. That's right. As I said before, cleaning up after baking is one of the most important parts. Right. I've got loads of like floury crumbs. Right, if anybody has any questions for me, I'm all ears. I can answer some of your questions while we are waiting for the scones in the oven. I'm trying to kind of keep an eye on my comments so that I can see. Ooh, dropped the phone. So if you have any questions or if you need me to repeat anything, let me know. I'm not too sure how to get a... Hi everyone! Hang on, continue. Right, any questions? Bakewell tarts, oh yeah, I can make Bakewell tarts, I'll put that on the list. I'm thinking tomorrow cookies, Bakewell tarts, maybe we'll do like a pastry one and then build it up, because for Bakewell tarts you need to make a, what's it called, an amaretti middle. So I think maybe if we start with something simpler, that might be good. Yeah, Bakewell tart, definitely. Oh, we've got 2 for Bakewell tart. Would you like a Bakewell tart as well, Mr. Egg? Tomorrow we're going to do cookies, but I'm going to do a bit of an upgrade and show you how to make your own caramel if you'd like to. So technically there'll be cookie cups with salted caramel in. And I've done, look, I have pre-prepared your grocery list for tomorrow. Is it upside down? So what you will need, if it is upside down, is you will need caster sugar, brown sugar, butter. You'll need 1 egg, plain flour and baking powder, vanilla and chocolate. You can use chocolate chips or you can use a block of chocolate. I'm going to use literally a bar of chocolate and chop it up. Then, if you'd like to upgrade them, I will show you how to make a very easy caramel, salted caramel, to put in the cups.
It's backwards.
It's backwards. It's backwards. Don't worry. I'll take pictures of it. I'll take pictures of it and post it. I don't know how to make it not backwards, unfortunately. I wonder if I turn the camera around. Hang on. Yes, that's better. Okay. It's because it was facing me. So, for salted caramel cookie cups tomorrow, you will need 100 grams of caster sugar, 150 grams of brown sugar, 100 grams of butter, 1 egg, 225 grams of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 150 grams of whatever chocolate you would like. I'm going to be using dark chocolate and white chocolate, but whatever tickles your fancy, really. If people have got chocolate hiding in the house, use up what you've got. Then, if you'd like to upgrade your cookies, I will show you how to make your own salted caramel. You'll need 100 grams of brown sugar, 100 grams of butter, and 100 grams of double cream. And, of course, some salt. It's pretty easy. There's no worrying about having to get your caramel to the right temperature and all of that. You can pretty much do it by sight. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. Right, let me flip this around. Oh, in fact, let's check on our scones while we're here. Oh, yes, see? The cheese on top is already starting to melt down and crisp up. And they will puff up nicely. Loving it. I know, I'm sorry, the bloody thing was in reverse, but I've done it the right way around now, so hopefully you've all seen. Look what Jim's got for me as well. It's a ginormous tripod, so tomorrow we may have a better view of what's going on. Right, how's everybody getting on? Has everybody been able to whip up their scones okay? Any questions about your scones today? Hope it hasn't been too confusing with the whole sweet, savoury swap over. Eat some cheese. I'm cleaning up right now. My mother taught me well. She taught me to clean up as I go. In fact, this recipe is taken from a cookbook that my mum had. Oh, is that the alarm? No. This recipe is taken from a cookbook that my mum had when she was a child. Jim's what? Jim's ginormous tripod. Oh no, I'm so sorry. This is a family show. But for some reason, I'm worse than Nigella in the way that the innuendos come up. Are your scones looking good, Kate? Have they worked out okay? Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I was telling you about my mum's cookbook. So, this recipe I stole from a cookbook that my mum had when she was a little girl. Well, that her mum used to bake with. And it's even got little marks in it, big old cookbook, from when my mum used to bake with her mum. My mum used to mark down all the things that she liked. Mostly it was sweet things and cake. And then when I was a little girl, my mum used to use that cookbook and we used to bake things together. So this cheese scone recipe is actually out of that book. I'll tidy all of this up. Make sure that everything is cleaned away. How long have the scones had? Oh, we've only got 4 minutes left. 4 minutes to go. Now, macaroons. Oh yes, I could do macaroons. Macaroons are a bit tricky, but I think I might actually have all the ingredients for macaroons. What I might do is I might have a vote. We can do salted caramel cookies or we can do macaroons tomorrow. It is up to you guys. So post your vote in the comments of what you would like to bake tomorrow and I shall get the ingredients. I know for macaroons it's like stuff like ground almonds. You will need eggs and icing sugar, but that is pretty much it for macaroons. So very few ingredients, but it's quite technically challenging. Could be fun though. I'd quite like to see how people's macaroons turn out. Like, try not to eat all of the leftover cheese. Back to this, I'm going to have to start making some healthy bakes as well because we're really going to be getting big. I've still got Beanie's Worlds in the fridge from yesterday. My Beanie's Worlds from yesterday that I've been munching my way through. And if we make the caramel cookies, they are a little bit irresistible. Now, let's see how our scones are getting on. Hi everybody. Salted caramel cookies, Rachel. Yeah, see, this is the thing. Chicken pie, Jim. You're the savoury person. If we do chicken pie, I might have to make Jim do it because I'm good at sweet stuff, not so good at savoury. So brownies. Brownies is a good one as well. I've got a really good recipe for brownies. Right, let's check on the scones. Oh, they're looking good. Oh yeah. They'll probably need about 15 to 20 minutes altogether. But we're going to check on them as we go because we do not want them to burn. I'm also going to check on my oven temperature. Make sure that's still at 180. My oven is a little bit temperamental and likes to turn off from time to time. So, how's everyone doing? Tell me about you. I'm bored at home. Supposed to be a hairdresser, but I'm not allowed to go to people's houses anymore. Kind of freaks me out. People called me today. Somebody called me this morning asking for an appointment, and I had to tell her that I couldn't do an appointment because we're not supposed to be leaving our homes. And she was quite confused. And I was like, you know about this thing, coronavirus? And she's like, oh yeah. I think she hasn't been out. I don't think she's watched the telly or the radio and still thinks that you can go out and about and do normal things. Now, I'm not judging anyone. If you're going out and things, I'm not going to shout or moan at anybody. People have got to do what they've got to do. But there's people out there that could get really ill from this. So stay in your house. Hey, Cormac! Cormac, my nephew, is baking. Have you been baking, Cormac? I went to drop off some baking powder to my niece and nephew and my sister-in-law today. Left it in their porch. And my niece and nephew were staring at me through a window as if I was something from the zoo. That's right. Like, look, Mum, it's another person out in the world. Right, we are cleaning it. I'm almost out of kitchen cleaner as well. And there's none of that left on the shelves, so I don't know what I'm going to do when I do run out. Right. Oh, that's the alarm. Right, let's see how they're getting on. Now you can, with these, as with biscuits, open the oven and check. Oh, they're starting to get a bit browner. They're looking good. They're not puffing up too much, but let's not worry, because they are going to taste sublime. You've done the lawn, Karen. I like it. See, this is the thing, people. We may be stuck at home, but we can get jobs done. Right. And if you've made cheese scones, this is the thing. With savoury scones, I like to have them with jam. They look nice. Pink stuff is the best cleaner in the world. Oh, I'll get myself some pink stuff, thanks. Is that an innuendo, Kate? Is that a euphemism? This is a family show, so stop being gross. Right, I'm going to put all my baking things in the sink. Make Jim clean them up later. What have we got? Peppermint creams one day. Yes, peppermint creams are very easy, Ellen. I can probably do you a peppermint cream recipe right now while we're waiting for the scones to cook. It's literally an egg white and icing sugar. I think it's pretty much fondant, you know, fondant's the same, but you dip it in chocolate afterwards. Right, so tomorrow, just to recap, we are going to be doing chocolate chip cookies, American style chocolate chip cookies, and we are going to be making our own salted caramel to put in the middle. As well as your ingredients, I shall show you them again for anyone who didn't see. I've figured out that I've got to switch the camera around. Right. Those are your ingredients for chocolate chip cookies tomorrow. I'm going to be using a bar of chocolate, but you can use anything you like really. I use a bar of chocolate because you can chop it into chunks and stick it in the cookies and you get a bigger chunk of chocolate that way. And then we're going to be making our own caramel, salted caramel, and we're going to make a little cup with the cookies and fill them full of caramel, which will be very nice. So, those are the ingredients. You will need, different from usual, instead of using our trusty non-stick tray, we're going to be using a cupcake tray, any kind of cupcake tray. If you've got a non-stick one, great. Mine is not non-stick, so I'll be doing some little tricks to try and stop them from sticking in the bottom. But the general idea is we make our cookie mixture, we press them into our cupcake tray, then when they're baked you can fill them full of caramel. So that's what you'll need tomorrow. Any questions for me? Any questions? Oh, I haven't set the alarm again. Let's check on the scones, make sure they're not burning, and then we can set the alarm again if they need a bit longer. Oh, they do look good. Hey Lisa and the girls! You doing well with the scones? Good. Oh, they're so cute. Love you guys. Hope the new baby's doing well. The scones are looking good. We want them to brown up a little bit more. They're getting a bit like crumbly in there. You know, with any recipe like this, if it starts to go a bit awry, these are looking good. But any recipe, this is what's good about baking. When you bake, if something goes a bit wrong, generally it's going to taste good, even if it doesn't look good. This is why I much prefer baking than making savoury food. Because if you make savoury food and it goes wrong, generally it tastes like poo. And it's not very edible. Like when I made Jim vegan burgers. I made him chickpea and beetroot burgers. Didn't go so well. No, he actually refused to eat them, which he's never done. Right, putting things away. Tidying up. Pretty much all cleaned away. Anyone have any questions? Do I have all the ingredients? I don't have all of the ingredients for tomorrow. I might need brown sugar. This is the brown sugar that I use. I use light muscovado sugar. It's a soft brown sugar. I mean, that's the branded one, but you can get like shop's own soft brown sugar. This is the best for cookies. It'll make them really, really chewy and really caramelly. So if you can get that brown sugar, that's the best stuff. You can also use dark brown sugar for your cookies as well. That's just as nice and gives it a bit of a richer flavour. I pretty much have all of my ingredients for tomorrow. All I will need is eggs, which I'm going to steal. Oh, that's right, Steve, a bit of light muzzy sugar. Everyone loves a bit of light muzzy sugar. Some castor sugar, some light muscovado sugar. It's all that life's about, really. Right, how's everyone doing? How are the sugar scones going? Any sweet scones doing okay? Kath, I did say poo, but it's okay because poo is not a swear word. It's not, I've been told, I've checked. Surface cleaning, yes, I've been surface cleaning away. My kitchen will be clean. It's the only thing I do, is clean things. Mum, it's okay that I said poo. Poo, demerara sugar does work. Yeah, demerara sugar will work. Any kind of brown sugar. Let's check on the scones. Oh, they're getting brown now. We're doing good. I reckon maybe 4 more minutes. People, if your ovens are different temperatures, just keep an eye on your scones. When they start to go quite brown, let's have a look at these in fact. Let's open up the door. Yeah, see these are still quite pale. When your scones start to go brown, especially if you've put sugar on top for sweet scones, then gauge it. Once they've had about 15 minutes, they should be alright to come out, especially if they're getting a little bit too dark. So just keep an eye on them. If they're getting a little dark, whip them out. My oven is probably a little bit cooler than most, so I'm leaving mine in a little bit longer. Plus my scones are quite chunky. If you've cut your scones quite small, they'll cook a lot quicker. Yeah, you're just looking for them to be brown on the top and on the sides as well. They'll go brown on the top quicker because you've put a glaze on them and some sugar or cheese. So you're looking for the sides to be brown as well as the top. Mine are a bit too pale. Let me show you mine again. So mine are a bit too pale, but you can see they're starting to get brown on the edges now. You just want them to be a little bit darker than that, really. Again, your glaze will go quite dark on top and the sugar will go quite brown quite quickly. So don't let the sugar on top and the glaze on top fool you, because the middle won't be cooked properly. These, I'm literally going to give them another 5 minutes and then I'm going to take them out. So I'm going to get my cooling rack ready. Over here. And I'm going to put this. I'm plugging my charger in. Don't want to run out of battery before they're done. Right. So, because the camera's in reverse, I'm not sure what's going on. Is everyone all right out there? Any problems? I'm new to this, as you can probably tell. This is the kitchen. Hello? I've had to put the camera over here because it was starting to go funny. Is everyone all right? Hi everyone, we've just made scones. If you're just tuning in, we've just made scones. Yes, we have. They're in the oven baking. My phone's starting to run out of battery, so I've plugged it in. I've cleaned up my surfaces. My utensils are going in the wash. Please send me pictures of your scones as well, whatever you've made. And if you made Viennese Wells yesterday, send me pictures, because I love to see the pictures. So, to recap. Scones. We've made cheese scones or we've made fruit scones. Tomorrow we're going to be making chocolate chip cookies with caramel centres, caramel cookie cups, let's say. Let's see how we're going. Keep an eye on your scones, people, because they will be nearly ready now. Mine are getting there slowly. Don't be tempted to turn up your oven as well. If you turn up your oven, you're more likely to burn the outside and the inside will still be raw. So let them cook. Doesn't matter if they take a bit longer than you think. Put the milk away. How's everybody? Scones going well? Hi, Danny! Are you baking, Danny, or are you just watching? Oh, I found a shop that has flour as well. None of the big supermarkets have flour, but there's a shop down the road from me on Clay Lane that has the proper stuff. Mum always says this is the best. The McDougall's plain flour and self-raising flour. So if you're out of flour, try your local corner shop or the smaller shops close to you. The big supermarkets don't have any. Aldi don't have any, neither do Tesco's. So if you're in need of flour or any baking equipment, check your local shops because most of them do have some. Right, I think they're ready. Are we ready? Let's have a look. We'll have a little check. Oh, they look amazing. No, still a bit pale, still a bit pale. They've only got 2 minutes left, so we'll leave them for the last 2 minutes and then take them out. Now, if you've made cheese scones, what I like to do with them once they're all baked, rather than eat them straight away, is cut them in half and toast them under the grill and then put your butter and jam on. I like jam with cheese scones, it's weird. Beth, unfortunately not today. No worries. Come and do some baking with us tomorrow. We're going to be making cookies tomorrow. Oh, that's the wrong cupboard. I shall put up your ingredients for tomorrow so that you can see them. Hang on. So this is what you will need for baking cookies tomorrow. Oh, the alarm's gone off. We'll stop that. leave that on there. If anyone has any questions, let me know. That's what we'll do tomorrow though. You won't need your baking tray. If you're just doing flat cookies, you can use your baking tray. Or if you've got a cupcake tray, we're going to be using a cupcake tray to make our cookies into like a little cup so that we can fill them with salted caramel. So that's what you'll need for tomorrow. Hopefully your scones have gone well today and you want to do some more baking. Right, I'm going to whip my scones out now. Watch out, boys. I'm whipping my scones out. Ta-da! Cheese scones. They should have puffed up a little bit. Your cheese should be melted on the top but not burnt. Edges should be a little bit brown, getting a bit brown around the edges. I'm going to stick these on my cooling tray and then I can show you what they look like. Now then, let's have a look. Dun, da, da, da. Cheese, scones. Ta-da! Send me some pictures if you've made fruit ones or of your cheese scones. If you've made smaller ones, they probably won't have taken as long to bake as mine. I've made kind of ginormous ones. But there you go. Cheese scones, ready to eat. Hope you've enjoyed the video today. Tomorrow we'll be doing cookies. Send me pictures. And thanks so much for watching. Bye!